The medical bay doors hissed shut behind Dr. Alara Chen as the gurney carried her toward the operating theater. She had tried to smile, tried to wave reassurance to the small faces pressed against the observation window, but the pre-surgical sedatives were already pulling her under. Her last conscious thought was of them, the cubs, and whether they would understand. Rin's amber eyes tracked the gurney until it disappeared around the corner. The eldest of the Velkari cubs stood perfectly still, her tail wrapped tight around her legs, her ears flat against her skull. Behind her, 3 smaller cubs whimpered and shuffled, looking to her for guidance. "She's coming back," Rin said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her whiskers. "Humans are strong," Dr. Alara promised. The other cubs, Tisk, Mora, and little Jep, pressed closer. They were refugees, all of them, rescued from the bombardment of Velkari Prime 6 months ago. Orphaned by a war they were too young to comprehend. Dr. Alara had been the first human they'd met, the first being in the galaxy who had looked at them with something other than pity or disgust. "But the operation," Tisk whispered, his voice cracking. He was barely 8 cycles old, still small enough that his spots hadn't fully formed. Captain Vorath said it was dangerous. That humans are fragile. Rin's claws flexed involuntarily. She had heard the whispers too throughout the colony ship. The other species spoke of humans with a mixture of admiration and concern. They were brilliant, yes, capable of impossible feats of engineering and medicine. But they were also soft, their bodies breaking easily, their lifespans measured in decades rather than centuries. "Dr. Alara isn't fragile," Rin said firmly. She sat down directly in front of the medical bay doors. She carried Jep for 3 kilometers when the evacuation transport failed. She stayed awake for 42 hours straight, treating refugees during the plague outbreak. The words caught in her throat strong, that's what she wanted to say. But even strength had limits. The station's artificial day cycle dimmed to simulate evening. Medical staff came and went, offering the cubs food, blankets, gentle suggestions that they return to their quarters. Rin refused each time with a polite shake of her head. The other cubs followed her lead, curling up against the wall near the door. "Rin," Mora said softly as the hours stretched on. "Tell us again, about Earth." It was their ritual, the stories Dr. Alara had shared during the long nights when nightmares made sleep impossible. Rin closed her eyes and began to recite. "Earth is a death world," she said, her voice taking on the cadence of a practiced tale. "The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is poison to most species. They breathe oxygen, which corrodes metal and feeds fires. Their star bombards them with radiation. Their oceans are filled with salt that would kill us. And yet they thrived," Tisk continued, his voice small but steady. "They didn't just survive," Rin corrected. "They conquered their world not through biological adaptation but through stubbornness. When their bodies failed, they built tools. When their lifespans proved short, they invented writing to pass knowledge across generations. They turned their weaknesses into weapons. Their fragility became precision. Their short lives became urgency." "Is that why Dr. Alara works so hard?" Jep asked, his eyes half closed with exhaustion. Rin nodded slowly. "Humans know they don't have time to waste. Every moment matters to them." 8 hours became 10. The medical staff's offers of comfort became more insistent. A Centauri nurse, her crystalline features softened with concern, knelt beside Rin. "Young one, the surgery may take another 4 hours. Your vigil while touching serves no purpose. Dr. Chen would want you to rest." "She needs to know someone's waiting," Rin replied, her voice hoarse now. "She needs to know she's not alone." "That's what she taught us, no one should face darkness alone." The nurse's expression flickered with something that might have been understanding. She placed a thermal blanket over the cubs and left without another word. 11 hours. Rin's muscles ached from sitting, but she refused to move. The other cubs had long since fallen asleep, their small bodies pressed against her for warmth and security. She kept her eyes fixed on the door, counting her breaths, reciting everything Dr. Alara had taught her about human resilience. Humans had no natural armor, so they invented shields. They had no venom, so they created medicine. They had no claws, so they forged tools. They were prey animals who became apex predators through sheer determination. They were fragile creatures who somehow became the galaxy's most stubborn survivors. If Dr. Alara could face surgery on a colony station millions of light years from Earth, if she could heal others despite her own vulnerability, then Rin could wait. She would wait as long as it took. 12 hours and 17 minutes after the medical bay doors had closed. They opened again. Dr. Alara emerged in a wheelchair, her face pale, her movement slow but her eyes bright and alert. The moment she saw the cubs, something in her expression cracked, not with pain but with overwhelming emotion. "You waited," she whispered. Rin stood on trembling legs, her tail finally unwrapping. "You promised you'd come back. Humans keep their promises." Dr. Alara reached out with shaking hands and Rin stepped forward into her embrace. The other cubs woke immediately, surrounding the wheelchair, their purrs of relief filling the corridor. "I'm sorry I worried you," Dr. Alara said, her voice thick. "The surgery was more complicated than expected." "We know about complicated," Rin said, pressing her forehead against the human's shoulder. "You taught us that complicated doesn't mean impossible. You taught us that being fragile doesn't mean being weak. You taught us that humans don't give up." Dr. Alara's laugh was watery and tears tracked down her cheeks. Another human peculiarity, crying from emotion rather than pain. "You're a remarkable young one, Rin. You all are." "We learned from a remarkable human," Rin replied. As they made their way slowly back toward the residential quarters, Rin understood something profound. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their intelligence. It was this, the ability to inspire others to be strong, to wait through the darkness, to believe that dawn would come. Dr. Alara had survived because she was human, stubborn and resilient and impossibly determined, and the cubs had waited because she had taught them what it meant to have faith in someone. In the vast darkness of space, on a small colony ship filled with refugees and survivors, that faith was enough.